Hey y'all, Robbie Falk here on my back porch. Got a haircut, got a shave. I know. Don't worry, I'm growing it right back out. This is just this cat. There's a cat. My gosh, the cat was rubbing against the tripod. What is going on here? No, so we're already off the rails here on Talkin Dawgs. This week, we are not doing a live chat. I apologize. I have several things going on this week. I just can't do it. Tonight, getting ready to go to a celebrity weight night at Harvey's in Starkville. Myself and Brian Haydad going to be among some of the people that are going to be on the wait staff at Harvey's, raising money for the Humane Society for Oktibbeha County. So since I can't do that, I figured I would at least stop by and give you guys a little bit of some thoughts on the week for Mississippi State. And it's a huge week for the Bulldogs. State comes into this final 6-game stretch of football season at 3-3. They are 0-3 in SEC play, so it is vital that they start winning some games here down the stretch. And it starts this week against Arkansas. Bulldogs going on the road to Fayetteville against another team that's struggling. This could be the battle for the worst team in the SEC West. Whoever loses this ball game is probably going to finish last, if we're being honest. And quite frankly, Sam Pittman is a guy that is a lot of people are putting on the hot seat. I don't know yet if that's. I haven't talked to enough people at Arkansas to gauge whether or not that's a possibility. I know he did have I think an extension, fairly recent. I can't remember exactly when that was, but there's a lot of people in Arkansas that aren't very happy with what they got going on. The offense has struggled. Defense, I think, has had a little bit of a resurgence. They were bad last year, so the defense has been better. They got some guys out of the transfer portal that have really helped them, and I think that's been a good thing for them, but the offense hasn't been able to really sustain a whole lot of success on that side of the ball. And it's been kind of a shame because they have one of the best quarterbacks in the league in KJ Jefferson. They have one of the best running backs in the country in Rocket Sanders, who's been hurt most of the season. He's going to be out again this weekend, and that's good news for Mississippi State. But for Arkansas, they're running an offense that doesn't really fit the skill set that they have at quarterback and one of their best quarterbacks in school history in North Panola grad, KJ Jefferson. And it's been kind of a struggle for them. They've had stretches in ball games where they haven't been able to score. They've had stretches where they've been good, but it's really kind of plagued them against teams like Ole Miss and for the most part, most of the game against Alabama. They did score 3 touchdowns on Alabama, which is something that, doesn't happen a whole lot for teams. So, I don't know if the offense is totally to blame in that game. I thought for most of the game against Ole Miss, they weren't good enough in that game, although they scored, on their first drive of the game, went 80-plus yards down the field. I think it was second to last drive of the game that took the lead against Ole Miss. So, the offense did have some positive things in that ball game, but for the most part, most of the game was kind of a struggle for them. This cat is just coming after this tripod. Get back. The cat, by the way, we talk about the Humane Society. This cat was a feral cat that showed up at my house with hiss at me and hiss at my kid and my family and try to take over the property. And it followed me when I moved. It followed me across the street somehow and got over here, and it's just become part of the family. I mean, we can't get rid of it. And it stopped scratching me and hissing at me as much, and now it's letting me pet it, and it's getting really comfortable with this tripod that's holding up this camera. I mean, it's bumping into it and everything. So apologies for that. Hasn't been the greatest quality of video, but, we like to be informal on here. So the Bulldogs are coming into this ball game off of a bye week. I think for the most part, that's advantage Mississippi State, you would think. In most cases, Arkansas is coming off 5 straight losses. The Razorbacks have lost fairly close games to LSU, Ole Miss, Arkansas. Texas A&M game was a good game for most of the way. They made some mistakes in that ball game that kept them out of winning it. But that's the only game in this 5-game stretch I believe, that has been a double-digit loss for them. They lost to BYU as well in that stretch. So, it's been a tough stretch, but this hasn't been an Arkansas team that has been giving up, that has been blown out of ball games. Like I mentioned, all 5 losses have been fairly close. They've been in the ball game in the fourth quarter in those games. And in 4 of those, they've lost by single digits: BYU, Ole Miss, Alabama, and LSU. So this isn't going to be an easy task for Mississippi State. They're not going into a place and facing, Chad Morris coached Arkansas. This is going to be a tough game for the Bulldogs, especially for a team that has struggled on the defensive side of the ball like Mississippi State, that has been up and down on the offensive side of the ball, and now you're dealing with some big injuries that's going to affect you in this ball game. Let's talk about those injuries. So State has the bye week. I think very beneficial for this team overall when you consider the fact that they've had so many injuries this year. We'll start off at the top with the 2 biggest injury concerns: quarterback Will Rogers, running back Woody Marks. And I'll add in running back Jeffrey Pittman too, because he would be the starting running back if Woody Marks wasn't able to go. Talking to some people this past weekend, Woody Marks was held out all last week. I believe his ankle was actually stabilized to the point where they might even put a cast on it to keep him from having any kind of contact with that ankle. He's got an ankle sprain, I believe, and it's been something he's been dealing with the last 4 or 5 weeks. This isn't something that was new. He was dealing with it before that Western Michigan game, gets it a little bit dinged up in that game, comes out of the game. They don't play him anymore in the ball game. He is very questionable for this ball game coming up. I believe later this week they will take that cast off or whatever boot or whatever they got on him, and they will test it out and see where he is. I'm leaning towards him not playing, but we'll see. I don't have any kind of confirmation on that other than the fact that he was a non-factor in practice. They didn't do anything with him in practice this week, and he's questionable for the game against Arkansas. Will Rogers, I have no clue his status. I have heard different things. I've heard that he's going to be out for several weeks. I've heard that he's okay. And I've heard that he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. And I'm leaning towards the couple of weeks being what we're going to see here. I don't expect him to play on Saturday. But, that could change. I don't have 100% confirmation on that. Zack Arnett has not commented on it really, but I don't expect him to play this weekend with a shoulder injury. And that means Mike Wright is your quarterback for this week and possibly for the foreseeable future for Mississippi State. That's what a lot of people have wanted to see, and now you've got your wish. I was one of those people. I wanted to see more Mike Wright, but you would like to have a full arsenal of quarterbacks. Mississippi State doesn't appear to have that. Mike Wright is going to have to play in this ball game and play a lot and possibly be your starting quarterback. And when you look at that and you think about the possibilities that Mississippi State has at quarterback without Will Rogers, you start to wonder whether or not Chris Parson is healthy enough to play, because there's been some rumors about him. Now, those rumors I don't believe to be 100% accurate. I don't think that Chris Parsons out for the season. I don't think he has a serious injury. I don't know if he's going to be available, but you really need him to be, because Mike Wright's a guy who likes to run the football. He's probably going to take some hits in this game. You got to have a scholarship quarterback ready if Will Rogers is not able to go as well. So does that also affect how you use him in this ball game? Are you going to run him as much as you usually run him? Zack Arnett mentioned on Monday, the way that they use him, if he is the guy, will be the same way that they've used him the last 6 games, which is a lot of running, I believe. And then last week he threw the ball 10 times. So, he's going to be utilized in the run game a good bit. But you have to be careful there. So there's a lot of questions going in this ball game from an injury perspective. Mississippi State got the luxury of having the bye week and healing some guys, but they're still not 100% healthy. And that affects how you attack Arkansas this week. This is a team that likes to run the football in Mississippi State. and you might not have your starting running back. Jeffrey Pittman might also be out. I'm not sure what his status is, dealing with an ankle injury as well. So you're down to 3 scholarship running backs if those 2 guys are out. You're down to possibly 1 scholarship quarterback. We're not real sure where they stand right there with their quarterbacks coming into the game. So it's a kind of hanging on by a thread situation for Mississippi State in the run game with the guys they have there. Now, they are getting reinforcements at wide receiver. Justin Robinson should be fairly healthy. He's been out for 3 weeks, hasn't played for 3 weeks, didn't play against Alabama, didn't play against Western Michigan. I don't think he played against Alabama. And he, of course, didn't play last week. So he should be fairly healthy. He should be ready to go. You should have basically your full allotment of wide receivers, which is good news for Mississippi State. Offensive line looks to be pretty healthy. On the defensive side of the ball, you're missing 2 defensive linemen in Travion Williams and Calvin Dinkins. Travion Williams is out for the season. Calvin Dinkins, I expect to be out a few more weeks as well. But you should get DeMonte Russell back this week, which is good news for the Bulldogs. And they've been playing a lot more guys up front, so more guys are starting to get more experience there. Dontarie Russell, his brother, has played a lot since the Alabama game, I believe, when he got that sack. And he's been one of your better pass rushers the last couple of games. So they need him to be good. And they need those linebackers to be good, and also in the secondary as well. So Bulldogs coming in a little more healthy than they have been, but everybody's got to step up this week. Bulldogs really need this win. You got 6 games remaining. Arkansas, Auburn, Texas A&M on the road, Kentucky, Southern Miss, Ole Miss at home. Can you find 3 wins in there? Right now, for Zack Arnett, this is a situation where there's more and more rumblings behind the scenes that, he really needs to get to a bowl game. And for Zack Arnett, you got no juice right now in recruiting. Mississippi State's recruiting is really quiet right now. They just lost a 4-star commitment in P.J. Woodland. Huge loss there. At cornerback, a position that State's struggling at right now. That's a big loss. You're not really talking a whole lot about, a big 4-star commitment coming down the line, or, who they could flip. There's just not a whole lot of players right now that you feel good about Mississippi State landing. And that's kind of where recruiting is. You had a coach that hired a staff that is expected to recruit the state of Mississippi hard, and Mississippi State got some good guys in the summer and really hasn't added on to it. So right now you're getting beat in state by a lot of teams in the SEC. Recruiting doesn't have a whole lot of juice behind it. Your team doesn't have a whole lot of juice behind it. Zack Arnett could use a win badly, this cat. Zack Arnett really needs this victory. And then after this week, you got Auburn next week. That's a winnable game. It's going to be 2:30. Day game there. State has had success at Auburn before. Auburn's kind of struggling a little bit on the offensive side of the ball. If State can find a win in one of these 2 games, they're in decent shape. You need to find 2 more wins after that. Right now, I'm thinking big picture for Zack Arnett. He needs to get to a bowl game. That means 3 wins in the last 6 games. How can Mississippi State do it? So it starts this weekend, and you really do have to take a week-by-week approach now for Mississippi State. You've got to think about your injuries that you have. You got to break this down week by week and not worry about anybody ahead of you. You can't worry about Ole Miss ahead of you. Can't worry about Kentucky coming down the line. Can't worry about Auburn next week. State's got to worry about Arkansas. State needs to win this game this weekend. And this is an Arkansas team. I don't want to say they're ready to give up, because to me they've played the same way every week. They've played really hard. They just haven't won ball games. And they're probably looking for a win this weekend. They probably think that they can do that. They can win at home. They're playing a Mississippi State team that's struggling at home. And this is their chance to finally break this losing streak. I don't think this is a team that's ready to give up. But can you punch them in the mouth early and let them know that, hey, this could be loss number 6 in a row? Because then they might be ready to give up. But right now, they're coming to this ball game with a lot of confidence that they can win this thing. But for State, I think an early start, getting a lead in this ball game, getting some good things happening for you is huge. And 11 a.m. on the road, sometimes you can catch a team sleeping early. You can catch a sleepy crowd too. The Bulldogs have got to come out and start this game strong. So we'll see if they're able to do that. Real quick, I want to talk about basketball. the preseason predictions out today by the SEC media. I voted for the women side of things. I think, I'm not sure who voted for the men for us. Probably Paul Jones voted for the men, I imagine. The Bulldog men voted 7th preseason in the league, so middle of the pack. That's not bad for state. That's a good starting point, I think. Tolu Smith voted first team All-SEC. Of course, I believe these selections were made before the news came out that Tolu Smith was going to be absent for the first half of the schedule, but people are still fairly high on the Bulldogs, high on Tolu Smith, and when he gets back from his injury, should be huge for Mississippi State, and they really need to just survive this non-conference schedule. Can you get out of the schedule with 1 or 2 losses? I think if you do that, you're in good shape. You got Tolu back more than likely after the non-conference slate, but you really need to find a way to survive these non-conference games. And you got some good players on this team. It's just the posts right now is going to be fairly thin. Keyshawn Murphy's also out. You just got to find a way in these first few games. For the women, they were selected 5th in the league, which was where they finished last year. So, good spot to be there, right behind LSU, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Ole Miss. And I think after LSU, it can really be anybody's ball game there. You have a few tiers. I think LSU and South Carolina are probably going to be your top 2, and maybe Tennessee can sneak in there, but those are going to be your top 2 most talented teams. I would say Tennessee, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, maybe even Texas A&M. I think they added a lot out of the transfer portal, and also their recruiting classes have been good. Joni Taylor's got a really talented team, but about the top 7 or 8 SEC teams are super talented this year for the women, and Mississippi State's one of those with the group that they have. I think they're going to have a good season. So 5th in the league. Jessica Carter picked second team All-SEC. First team is absolutely stacked with players. Rakia Jackson's on there. Flo J. Johnson from LSU, Angel Reese from LSU, Haley Van Lith from LSU, and Camila Cardoza from South Carolina, I believe, is also on that list. So that's your little basketball minute there. Also, the Bulldogs picked 25th preseason in the Associated Press poll. Back in the poll for the first time since 2021. February 2nd, 2021 was the last time Mississippi State was ranked inside the Associated Press poll. That broke, that next week when they fell out of the poll, that broke a 125-week streak for Mississippi State women's hoops in the top 25 in the AP. Pretty crazy. That was a span of 7 years, I think, that they were in the top 25. So it's good to see Mississippi State back in the mix there. So, all right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Basketball right around the corner in a couple weeks, but football is taking precedent right now. Mississippi State going to Arkansas, 11 a.m., ESPN. Bulldogs will try to get their first SEC win of the season. It's a big game. They really need this one. We'll see if they're able to do that. Stay tuned on 247 Sports for more coverage of Mississippi State. Stay tuned for this YouTube channel. We'll have interviews throughout the next couple of weeks, of course, and more Talkin Dawgs coming to you. We'll have a reaction video, too, probably on Saturday as well. So hope you guys have a great rest of the week. Stay safe. We'll see you down the road.